Okay, cool. We're about to start y'all's first. Yes.
Say that we find a species now, but it's been living for years and years and years with no trace. How are we supposed to know how long it's been living?
See, they don't. If they can find no trace of the organism, then they don't know when it began. They can make guesses, unless they find fossil evidence or previous evidence of that particular species. Then they don't know. That's what they call it, a new species. And it may be new. It may be a species that just evolved and just appeared from a previous species, branched off, kind of like we branched off from the primates. So technically, our ancestors have been around for a long time, but we are a newer species. All right, Precambrian was the beginning of the Earth. Beginning of time, as we know it. Our world was created 4.6 billion years ago. Does anybody know what that little squiggly line next to 4.6 means? About or approximately. Because based on evidence we're finding all the time, they change the number slightly. Right now it's like 4.548 or something like that. Or 4.458. So between 4.5 and 4.6 billion years ago. During that time, our sun formed. So the center of our solar system formed. The Earth was formed. During that era also, where our atmosphere was created. The Earth didn't come with an atmosphere already made. An atmosphere was made through volcanic activity. Volcanoes would spew these chemicals and these gases into the air, and it got trapped and it formed an atmosphere. Now, it's not the atmosphere we have today. That atmosphere we would not be able to survive in. It's full of all kinds of toxic gases, but it was still an atmosphere. The oceans were first created during this era, and we saw the first forms of life. And for those of you that did your research on the Precambrian, you probably found that life forms were kind of basic. There's nothing really exciting going on during the Precambrian, and it is a huge chunk of our time. It lasted billions of years, about 4 billion years, whereas the rest of the eras lasted millions of years. So for a long time, for most of Earth's history, nothing really exciting happened. We created the Earth, we got oceans, we got atmosphere, we got a couple things that are very, very basic life forms. That was it. For 4 billion years.
Weren't there jellyfish that didn't jellyfish later evolve in with
At the end of it, yeah. But jellyfish are simple.
either way?
They are simple organisms. So life forms were simple. We had bacteria, we had algae, we had simple organisms. A lot of them only had one cell. Nothing had legs. Nothing was walking around. If you're going to take a trip back in time, I would not suggest the Precambrian. It was boring. Now, we're not finding a lot of fossils from this era. One, because it's really, really old. And a lot of our rocks that were around that day are no longer here. They've been recycled into new rocks. But also, when you do not have a skeleton, when you don't have a skeletal structure, it's really hard to preserve your remains. So when they find fossils, it's usually trace fossils or mold fossils. They don't find skeletal. When they have soft bodies, no skeleton, it's really hard to find evidence of these life forms.
Then how did they know those jellyfishes? Like how?
Because they did find evidences,
Like what? Like what kind of?
like trace evidences. They were squished between two rocks or something. They were able to find mold fossils, trace fossils. Towards the end of the Precambrian, we had a huge explosion of life forms, so life started really picking up. We started having different life forms, a little more complex, and there was more of them. However, the end of that era included a very large ice age. And that caused the end of the Precambrian, and we're beginning into the next era, which is the Paleozoic. I figured y'all could read this better than you could read my handwriting. I can go back if you need to. Is everybody down to this point?
Yes.
Anybody need me to go back? Brooklyn, close your computer. You should not be on it. You should be recording notes. Hmm?
What does MYA stand
What do you think MYA stands for?
for?
Millions of years ago. The BYA is billions of years ago. MYA is millions of years ago. Paleozoic era. After this major ice age of the Precambrian, we move into the Paleozoic. It was approximately 600 million years ago. So think about it. Precambrian started 4.6 billion years ago, ended 600 million years ago. So that is a huge chunk of time. So 600 million years ago, we start having early invertebrates. And if you are an invertebrate, that means you have no vertebrae or no backbone. Towards the end of the era, we started seeing simple vertebrates. That means you do have a backbone. Brooklyn, you be writing stuff down. We started to see organisms like trilobites during this time. Nothing fancy yet, but they're becoming more complex than our algae and bacteria from the Precambrian. Who's still recording this part up here with life forms and whatnot? Keep copying your notes, but laptops 1 through 5, quietly go plug in your laptop, please. One through 5, all laptops should be up. Six through 10. The Paleozoics, when we started seeing the first fish appear, and they are vertebrates, they have a backbone. And then we started seeing arachnids. Those lovely spiders. And we started seeing insects as well. Up to this point, everything has pretty much been marine, which means they've been in the oceans. But in the Paleozoic, we're starting to see a transition to things coming onto land. First, it started with plants. We started getting our first land plants, and simple plants like ferns and moss, no big trees or anything yet. But it was seed plants. No pollen, just seeds. 11 through 15. Through 15. Go put your laptop up. Anybody else needs to put a laptop up? Go do so now. Those of you who did not finish your brain pop, you need to do so tomorrow during home base as soon as first period starts. Later, or you want to go home if you want to. At the end of the Paleozoic, they had a mass extinction. It killed most of the marine invertebrates, which means it killed most of the ocean creatures that did not have a spine. It also killed a lot of the amphibians, so like salamanders are amphibians. There was another ice age, bless you, that marked the end of this era in the beginning of the Mesozoic. All right, the Mesozoic started approximately 250 million years ago, and this is what we call the age of the dinosaurs. We started seeing reptiles appear. They were large reptiles. '23, '24, and '30. Come plug in your laptops. Do not make me look up your name. We also started seeing the appearance of mammals. Animals that have fur, have live young, and produce milk for their young. First birds started to appear. And then we also started seeing plants that have flowers towards the end of this era. Up to this time, we're still dealing with mostly ferns and seed plants. Moss, simple plants. Now we're starting to see things that have to use pollination to reproduce. Diversity in mammals. That means that we're seeing animals that look different from each other. Not everything's looking the same way. Things are starting to get very variety. It ended with a mass extinction of many species, including dinosaurs. And what do we think caused the mass extinction? A meteorite or a large asteroid. That's what we saw the day the Mesozoic died. That's what they were talking about. That KT boundary is when they ended the Mesozoic and went into the Cenozoic. That marked the end of the Mesozoic. Like literally, it was like a mark in the rock. All right, we'll pick this up next time. Don't worry if you didn't get it all. You will see this again. Study, study, study. Be prepared for your test tomorrow. Even if it's a delay, which I doubt it will be, we will still have the test.